Yeah, and I'll probably I'll share this at some point.
Share this.
The video.
Like on other platforms.
On other platforms. So
beautiful, beautiful.
if you guys are okay with that, that's awesome. If you're not okay with it, you can turn your video off or whatever. Awesome. I got thumbs up. Cassia, your new hair looks awesome, by the way.
So good.
Yes.
Free woman.
She's long-haired beauty. Now she's a short-haired beauty. That's beautiful. Birth story. Gosh. Hold on, let me get a fart first. Can't even think. There we go.
Postpartum vibes. We're just keeping it real up in here.
Gem showed up. I'm like, Gem, fair warning, it's fart o'clock. There's like not much else I can say about it. It's just happening.
We're not glamorizing postpartum.
No. It's like birth. Birth is so long ago. It's like a whole like many, many days.
A week. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean the whole thing is just like so humbling. And it's such a continuum. It's hard to know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think probably if I think about like the birth process, it actually started like, I mean, with conception and before conception, but then like, that would be a very long story.
Yeah, we've been walking with you for a while.
You guys have been here for a lot of that, which is really beautiful. So then, yeah, it's like a week and some ago, the baby was born. And I remember in the weeks before baby was born, there was a lot of different new sensations sort of like ramping up, and maybe a month before, this like deepening realization of like, holy shit, this is just going to keep getting more and more dense till a baby comes out of my vagina. It's just like, ooh. Yeah, so he was born on Saturday afternoon, and the week beforehand, as the sensations really changed, I say like week by week, they got more and more intense. And so in that last week, it was like, oh, really having moments where all of a sudden my body would go like, oh, that's really intense, and just like pause and breathing through it. And but they're really, really sporadic and all over. I also like really feel my brain shutting down. Just like, no more brain happening. There was a moment where like I was just resting in bed and Dan was scrubbing the floor. You know, there's like this trope of like the woman being like, baby's coming, I must scrub the floor. And it's like, I didn't do it, Dan did it. Which is really, I was like, I like landed a level of like integration here where like my external world is doing this for me.
Yeah, nesting for you.
Like the external world is nesting for me. Wow, that's really cool. I got to put all these photos up on the wall. We got like three walls of the house. That was like my biggest like nesting thing. And yeah, and we had actually, before we'd even conceived, Dan and I had done like a channeling session. We were doing like a series of channeling sessions. And in one of them, we connected with this like galactic spiral star vortex being that gave us the name Prometheus, and had actually given us February 26th at 6:23 a.m. as the like birth time of our baby. The baby was born on January 26th. So we were sort of like in that last week being like, oh, February. Time is so funny. Yeah. Thanks. So we were actually like, could really be it. But also I was like, could be like 6 more weeks. Well, like 3 more weeks.
3 more
weeks from then, right? But just like, could be many more weeks. So to try not to like be in too much anticipation around that. And then, but then also it's like, oh, could really be like today. We went for, Dan says he knew it was going to happen. He's like, oh no, like that I really shifted gears and started being different. I remember being like,
I noticed it too.
Yeah. I remember being like, let's go for a walk. And then on the walk, we're sort of joking and being like, I think this is our last walk. And Sarah Edie, that local ladies know, like actually saw us on the drive. She was like driving by and she stopped and she's like, how you doing? And I was like, like that was my answer. Like there was no, I was like, it was like a hand gesture and like a sound rather than like words. Because I had decided I was up for walking. I could like walk, but like I wasn't really planning on talking to anybody or interacting with anybody. It's like I can walk, let's do that. So we were walking up to the grocery store to like get a couple things, and I was like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? We can stop at Grace's and like get a really yummy treat and sit outside while the boys do grocery shopping. So we did that. We talked to Sarah for a bit and I gave her some very non-committal, non-time oriented answers. She was trying to ask me questions and be like, like just like
when's it happening?
Very linear, like thinking questions. So I was just like, it's just like trying to dodge them. Just like, no. Like why these questions? Please stop. So she moved on her way, and then we went up to Grace's, and we ran into some other friends there, Tom and his wife and a friend, Jim. Thank you. And that was really interesting because again, they're asking like very linear, very like time-oriented questions. How you doing? His wife was like, oh, you're delivering in the hospital? I was like, heck no.
Planting seeds.
I know, I was like, heck no. I was maybe a little bit more discreet. It's like, I could feel it was sort of like, oh, like reorienting back towards like human interaction rather than like this very, very floaty space. We spent some time chatting with them and then everybody left and it was just like me and the dog sitting on the stairs there, and Grace came out and she gave me a samosa. She's like, I think you guys are vegan. You have that vibe. Would you like a vegan samosa? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. I was like, settling into like receiving. Good. She was like, how you doing? And I'm like, I just reached out and like grabbed her hand and was like, she go, oh, your hips are loose, girl. Like I can feel it from here. He's like, listen to my hips. I'm just holding hands with you. And I go like, she's like, your family's coming back soon, right? I go, yeah, we're going home. She's like, this is good. Go home. So we walked home. This is like Friday afternoon. It's still sunny out. I had covered the clock. We only have one clock on the stove in the whole house that isn't on a phone. So I had like covered that in the evening for many, many weeks already, just being like, I don't know if it's tonight, but if it's tonight, I don't want to know what time it is. I don't want to be like thinking about the time because I drive myself crazy with it. So yeah, we walked home. We walked the long way home because the car's smells were just so terrible on Rotary. So we walked the long way home and Dan carried all the heavy groceries like a champ. And then we got home and just sort of like settled into evening. I had like the most ginormous meal twice. And yeah, just sort of like settled in to do our evening, hanging out. And then Alex wanted to do stories, which he's been doing. So I set him up to listen to like Audible stories. And then Dan and I hit the bedroom. In California. Yeah, so then I'll just say hi. Hi Faye, thank you so much for joining us. We're just doing birth story from my baby's birth, so welcome and thanks for joining us. Faye's new and we'll get to chat and introduce with you at some point. Yeah, so we just like settling in, and like Dan and I been making love in the evenings most nights, like still all the way up to like birthday. So I was like, oh yay, like it's evening time, like good to have some like sweet intimacy. And was just like, no, like the body was like, it wasn't like intent, like it wasn't in retrospect, it was like a 1 out of 1,000 in intensity. Let's just be honest. But it was like more intense than what had been happening in my body in the evenings, right? So we'd been sort of navigating like intimacy through like intermittent contractions for like a week or more and he's really sweet about that. But this evening it was like, no, like they're too regular to like hold a consistent vibe of like, hey baby, how's it going? So yeah, so we were just like being together and just like touching and being really sweet with each other and sort of going like, oh my gosh, like we have this prophecy, maybe it's tonight, oh my god, and being really excited about it. And then also being like, and like get thee to bed, like that wisdom of like it could really be another 3 days, sort of like percolating through my brain. So we were there for quite some time, and then Dan fell asleep, as he often does, before me in the evenings. Oh, and I had put on music. I had made birth playlists, so and I'd written a list of like who I was rebirthing myself as. So one of those things was like wild and free. And I had this playlist and I was sharing stories with him. I'm like, oh yeah, and like this song, like I used to like dance in the snow to this song, and like this song, like this is the epic concert I went to in Bali, and just like really reconnecting with like highlights of my past self in a really beautiful way. And I like got up and danced for him for a little bit, which felt really like juicy, but also like a little shy. It's like, oh, I was like not fully like comfortable being in that. I remember being like, close your eyes. I need to dance, but I can't actually do that while you're like watching me. So I'm just close your eyes and I'll dance the thing that I need to like express through my body. Yeah, and then he fell asleep and I sat with myself and my body and the surges for a while. And like tried to sleep and was like, nope, that's not happening. And then I was like, I actually need to go like dance walking. I actually need to like really reconnect with that version of myself who, you know, traveled the world as a single mom, just like not giving a shit about the danger or the worry or the what made sense or whatever, just like that sort of like wild human. Because I feel like in the last 4 years of like healing some of that like craziness, I like got really kind of not as exciting in the process. Just like not taking those risks, and like through pregnancy being like, I want to walk in the evenings. I'm like, but I'm so vulnerable in my walking, and like, what if? And I was like, no, like there's no room to be scared this evening. There's like the thing I need to do is like go walking and like claim that bigness and claim that I'm not scared and like just like really be in that. So it's like late, maybe 11. I might have sneaked it. Oh, because I was looking at the music, so then my phone was there at the time. It's like 11ish when I remember, because I thought about dropping by your house. I was like, it's too late to do that. Yeah, so then I went walking, and I was like, where on the playlist am I dropping in? It's like, oh, we got some like MC Yogi, like Hey Ganesha, and just like really like it's like really boppy happy tunes, and just walking from the front of my house like down the street, just like dancing and being like, I'm gonna shake this baby out, like and feeling really good in it. And I walked up to the rails to trails, and there's a Christmas tree that's lit up on the path there. It's super beautiful. So I walked towards that for a little bit and was like, well, maybe I'll walk up to Gemma's and like just connect with her. And I was like, it's like 11 o'clock at night. She's probably sleeping. I'm not going to have the oomph to walk back. So I have to ask her to drive me home. Like I kind of could tell that. I was like, I can't show up at her house at 11 o'clock at night. Like, can you drive me home now, please? Like,
You totally could.
even though yes, but this is part of the thing that was healing in the birth process, right? Is like this ability to reach out to other women and be supported. And hey, baby, I know it's warm in there, huh? Yeah. Yeah, so I decided not to. And the song, there's this beautiful song that I've sent you before called like Roots, and it's all about like putting down roots. And most of you have met me since I've been living here, but like I spent the 10 years before this traveling. So to have a song that I really love that's about putting down roots and choosing a place and like being in connection with people regularly is like really a big deal for me. Really, really a big deal. So I just like sang my heart out. It was like, wah, 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 like just like singing like totally at the top of my lungs, like 11 o'clock at night behind all these people's houses. Just like, fuck it, I don't care. Like, I only get this night once in my life. Like, I was just like sing it out. So I sang that one. And then I walked like behind our house, as you can sort of like from the path, you can look down at our house. So I was like behind the house, and the next song was about, it's like a love song. And I just like, I could feel Dan like sleeping in the house and how grounding that relationship is. And just like, it's like grounding into place and then grounding into like love. And yeah, just feeling really, really, really good in that. Some water. Yeah. And then I was like, it's time to go home. Yeah. Yeah. Well, because it's still surging through like the walking, not so intensely. I think it calmed down a little bit while I was walking, just because I was out and about and it's like not as safe a space. But I was like, okay, time to go back. So I walked back and got back into the house, and Dan was sleeping, and I woke him up and was like, okay, like, I don't know why I woke him up because it's like, because I got back and it was like, oh, okay, now I'm back. And like my body was like, it's safe time, let's open up some more. And he and I spent the whole night just like rolling in waves together. I remember really consciously like utilizing and connecting with like pleasure in my body and being like, whoa, these are a little overwhelming. This is like next level intensity, and being like, okay, but if I like touch my pussy and if I like play with my clit, like it goes to neutral. I'm like, that's really fucking cool. Like this is a theory to this point. Like, but you know, like this is like, no, this is like very practical in my body. It's definitely helping. It's definitely like going from like, oh, what's happening to like, oh, this is nice. You know, like, Dan, like, me to eat my pussy now. Like, that's what's happening next. Like, come on, like, let's see how that goes. You know, it's like, there's nothing like penetrative happening because it's really like, again, it's just like so, like the surges are there, right? So it's like so, not a normal pattern, but just like riding those different waves with him like all night. And I have an audio recording of the whole, it was like the whole thing. So I'm gonna listen to that at some point and see like, what was that like? What did that sound like? But it was like really, really beautiful, and like actively working with the sensations and really just breathing through it. And we had, I had brought the birth ball in onto the bed. We got this like, it's like a king sized floor bed thing that just takes up like our whole bedroom. So it was just like on the bed. And I remember like getting up, and we had this like choo-choo train thing, like no longer linear enough to like ask in full sentences and just be like, I need to go to the bathroom now. And you're like, bathroom. And you're like, okay. And then I would like, he would lean, like walk forward, and I'd put my hands on his shoulders, and he would go like, choo-choo train, and just like walk me to the bathroom. And then he'd be like, okay, you're here. I was like, great, thank you. But like with less words, right? Just all in the body. And that was super helpful. We used that all the way through. Once we found that, it's like, oh, like that was a really good way for him to support me in moving around. And yeah. And then morning came. The sun rose, and I was like, what? The baby's not here yet? What the fuck you mean the baby's not here yet? It's morning time. The baby's supposed to be here now. 6:33. Where's the baby? Right? Like, I was like, the sun's up. What do you mean the sun's up? Yeah, and like all through that sort of like nighttime part, there was part of me that was like, I'm not pooping yet. That means it's not time yet. I'm not like, I can still think a little bit. Like I'm still sort of like analyzing where I'm at in this experience. I'm like, oh, right? Like I'm like, that means I'm not there yet. Like I know this.
birth worker in you.
Yeah. Okay. And then somewhere like just before the sun came up, baby like moved really low in my belly. He was like, he'd been like with his butt up on the left and his feet up on my right and head down for, I don't know, since maybe like 30 something weeks. And he moved, and it felt like maybe he moved, like he rotated, or like it felt like one of those things where you're like, whoa, like baby's really moving around. And in the days like leading up to his birth, I could feel like if I reached inside my vagina, I could feel his head. It was like sitting really low in my hips, and I could feel he's maybe like 2, 3, like maybe to there on my fingers, like in, and I could feel his head, and I go like, okay, and I go like, and there's like a vagina wall between me and the baby's head. Like I can feel that, I have that sensation. And I remember going like my concept of like how babies sit in the pelvis was a little bit shattered, because in my brain it was like the cervix is here and the baby's head sits on top of the cervix, and then the cervix opens and the baby goes through. But then feeling the baby, like knowing my cervix is like up here, over here somewhere, and the baby's head is already down here, you go like the cervix got to go like around and the baby's got to come out. And I was like that really tripped me up in a weird way, because I had really thought of it very linearly, like really gravity oriented. And it was like, oh, like my entire cervix needs to like stretch around something that's already in position. And that seemed like really overwhelming. Overwhelming. And it went from like something like opening a cork to like stretching a sock around something. And I was just like, yeah, that tripped me up a bit. So by the morning he'd done this sort of like weird like movement, and then all of a sudden I had like his head, or no, all of a sudden I had on the bottom right of my belly, when the surges were coming, there was this like hard thing that like I had never noticed before, hadn't noticed before he had sort of moved. And I got like kind of freaked out in my body, being like, wait, like maybe he's not engaged, because I couldn't feel his head in my vagina anymore. It had maybe moved up to get into like, so that it was more like that corkscrew, or the cork coming out kind of thing, rather than, so he'd moved up at some point during the labor, but I couldn't feel his head anymore. And there was this hard thing. So I was in my head, or like thinking or worried about it, sort of being like, what if he's like moved a little bit transverse? Like, we've been doing this all night. Like, why is this not happening? Like, he should be out by now. And kind of like really freaked out in that. And then the sensation is just like still increasing in intensity and getting like less and less lucid. And we texted you or we called you. I don't remember how that communication happened, but
yeah, Dan called me.
Dan called you, and you were like, I'm going to get Emily's placenta. And we were like, oh, this is so beautiful. We're like birthday babies, and I was like, oh, Emily did it. Great. That's so good. That's good helpful for me, right? Like, baby's born. It happens. It'll happen eventually. I'll get there, kind of thing.
Babies do come out.
Babies do come out. So you said like you could stop by before you came to get her placenta. So you came by. I remember Alex said it was 11:11, and then 12:12 when you left. We were like, wow. I was like, I'll remember those times. That's fine.
Yeah.
And you came, and I was on the bed here, and just like I remember the sensations like slowed down and got like more calm when you were here, which was really beautiful and relieving. And then you put your hands on me, got me on all fours, and put your hands on my belly, and sort of like felt around and talked to me about osteopathy a little bit. And you were like, no, there's no room in there for the baby to be transverse. It's like way too late in the game for that to be happening. Like, you're fine. This is all fine. And then you talked.
And I definitely felt baby shift down a lot when I was when I had my hands there. So yeah. I was not concerned at all.
Yeah. We were just like super reassuring and sweet. And then I remember thinking like, oh, I could ask her to stay, and like she would just stay, and we could just like birth the baby, and that would probably be really beautiful. And then going like, that's a lot of performance anxiety. I didn't even want to tell people I was going into labor because I was so anxious about other people's perceptions of how long I was in labor and checking in with me the next day and da 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 da, and like all of that. Like that really that freaked me out a bunch. And I was like, I actually don't think I can birth the baby with Gemma in the house just because I didn't plan that. That's not what I had intended. That feels like a lot of performance anxiety because she's got other things to do today, and she might be like she's on her way somewhere. So then if I take like 16 more hours, like that's like that's not what we signed up for, even though like you probably would have been totally in love with being there.
I was just honored to like make an appearance because like our agreement wasn't that I would be there. It was that I would be on call if she had any like questions or concerns. I could come over, answer her questions on the phone. So I was just happy to be here. But of course, I would have stayed, but I knew that you had like really really set your mind on doing it on your own.
Yeah. It's interesting because like my body was actually like significantly calmer while you were here. And probably I might have had a more easeful, lovely birth. Like in retrospect, it's like probably would have been more easeful with another woman in the house being like, sweetheart, you're fine, like, but that's not the container I had set for myself. The container was like, we're going to do this. And I remember feeling like so like I had come a long way because when I moved to Kimberly, it was like in September, I was 3 months pregnant or something. I knew nobody. We had decided on like free birthing because I was like, I actually just don't trust women. I don't trust people. I have lived on my own and traveled for 10 years because like people are kind of effed and like I'm not really sure if I want to like, like I've got attachment issues. I don't know about friendship. Like women are kind of weird and catty. Like I'm not sure. Right? Like all of these things.
Which is common, which we can say in the free birth world. We got to be mindful of why we're making our decisions.
Yeah, so like when I moved here, like I was really like, I'm gonna do this myself because that feels safe because I actually don't really trust people, and I definitely don't trust the medical system. So I'll just educate the heck out of myself and like hope I don't fall pieces. Hope it works, right? Basically. Yeah. And then I came here and I met like all you beautiful ladies like Alex and Cassie and Jeanette and Gemma and this like beautiful like circle of like wildly beautiful like-minded women. I go like, oh, like I think actually could be safe to like have ladies around. But I had very much like already set my intention, and I was still struggling with it because I was like I knew that like if I had gone like, Gemma, are you okay with staying? Like I know that you would have said like, yes, totally, anything you need. But like within myself, I didn't know how to let that be okay still or something like that. Yeah. So then you left, and that felt good. I was like, it's time, you can go now. And then sensations picked up again, and probably like if I want to like scale it, probably still only like a 50 out of 100 on the scale of 1,000. We're gonna be totally honest. And I remember being on the bed, laboring on the bed. I had the birth ball. I'm gonna turn this for a second. Maybe you can help me. Just the corner, it's like a mesh and stuff. So I got this like incredible photo altar thing. We had the birth ball in the corner there where the salt lamp is, up high on the nursing pillow so I could lean into it. I got my face like smashed up with Ganesh in this beautiful photo of like Cassia and Alex and Gemma and I. And a photo of myself in my like mid-20s when I was like really rocking the Joygasm teaching stuff, being like, right? Like I like that lady. She's super spunky. I remember saying that in labor, being like, I like her. She's good. We need more of that in here. Yeah. And yeah, just like so intense in the body. I remember the thing that I had sort of like found and settled on was like this like so many cards. Oh my God. Was this like like that was my go-to like sound thing. So it's like, because it's like, oh, like you want to start like I want to bring the energy down. I'm starting at the crown or higher. Grandma Karina had talked to us about like embodying Christ consciousness at like the 10th chakra. We'd done that on like the Thursday beforehand. She's like, you're now initiated into Christ consciousness. Like, go for it. I go like, thanks, Grandma. And so it was like, okay, we're like actively working with that and like bringing it down and like anchoring and grounding the energy and like bringing it through my cervix. Because one of the ladies I interviewed for the podcast was like a tantric expert, and she talked about like she labored for 72 hours grounding the energy through her feet instead of her cervix, because she's pro at moving energy. So she's just like held it and did it for like so many hours. And I was like, no, through the cervix, not through the feet. Even though that doesn't feel good right now, it's like, we'll just do that. And yeah, from that like morning point onwards, it was like, there was no more like touching myself to make it better. Although I did do that a little bit, but it was like, it was more than I had practiced holding pleasure that intensity. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to do that yet. I don't know how to last through that yet. He's like, maybe next baby with a group of ladies giggling hysterically around me. Like, I can see that happening. But this one, it was like, no. Yeah, so at some point Dan was like, I need to go pee. And he had been really sweet and like timing his I need to go whatever's with stuff. Alex, we were in morning now and Alex was awake. So we got him set up doing like Minecraft. He was super happy, just like sitting there doing Minecraft. And then Dan went to go pee, like lying on the bed, sort of curled up in the fetal position, being like, I'm so done. I don't want to do this anymore. and Dan goes to go pee, and there's this like gush and this like soft wetness on my leg. And I just go like, damn, my water's, I'm like, come back. And I like feel down and like, oh, it's not a baby, it's like my water's broke. And then it got more and more intense. It got more and more intense.
We all get it.
And less memories too, right? We were back and forth. The tub had been filled for a while, like through the night even. So we were like back and forth from the tub doing little choo-choo trains. I remember standing in the living room and just like Dan stood in a single point and I just held his hand and like walked in circles around him. I remember being like, I can't be in the tub anymore. I need to use gravity. I want this to be done. I need to get up. I need gravity. Like, and then but like psyching myself up, being like, you can get out of the tub. It's going to be worse. But like, that's what you need right now. Just get up. And then getting up out of the tub. And then at some point also this little chunk of bed got so messy. At some point we were like, Dan was there and he had stood up and I had stood up and I was holding onto his neck and I like, something happened with my pelvis where like my pelvis just like made this like different rotation from what I had been doing. And it really like tilted back. And it's just like, I'm like, oh, I'm just like pooping on the bed right now. That's what's happening. It's just like, I was like, oh my God. I was like, please let me the baby. It's like, no, that's not the baby. I go like, oh, Dan, choo to the bathroom. Right? So we go to the bathroom and I have like the most giant poop on the toilet. I'm just like, oh, I was like, but there's like, I'm pooping now, right? But there's no thinking that, oh, I'm pooping now. This is like, the thinking is gone. It's like, great, the thinking is gone. Only registered enough thinking to be like, oh, I just pooped on the bed, right? Like, it's really real.
We're not glamorizing it.
No. Yeah, so then we were in the bathroom and I remember being on all fours on the like floor mat and Dan wiping my butt because he's a champ. And He just winked at me through the doorway. He's like, yeah. Yeah, I remember him saying, like, I wish somebody would have told me there'd been so much like bodily fluid management in this like week around birth, right? It's like the week, like the birth itself and then the time after. It's just like so much bodily fluid management. That was his job, right? Like, make sure she's got liquids, make sure the poop gets cleaned up, like, yeah. Choo-choo, back to the bathtub. Oh, it's so like very non-memory after that. Yeah, probably remember being in the tub for a long time before baby came, because I was like, screw this gravity thing. I just want the water. Every time I got in the water, I was like, oh, the water. Thank you, water. It's so beautiful and warm. And yeah. So you're in the water. It's in the water. It felt like I was in the, like, we didn't have any time on it. I know you were there at noon and the baby came around 4. So somewhere in between.
I was on the phone with you for about an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. So then I was like, I remember feeling like it was like way too much for like 2 to 3 hours of like being like, I'm in transition. Because I puked before we called you as well. Yeah, I remember. So I was in the, oh, there we go. I caught the thread again. So I was in the tub. I decided like tub was where baby was gonna come. I'm like, little Pisces baby, let's do this, baby. And I yeah, so I was in the tub and just like so intense. I remember being like, I can't do this anymore. I hate this. I don't want to do it. But like I going like, the only way out is through. The only way out is through. And like still like with every surge, for like hours, I doing this like like just like
you made my favorite noises I think I've heard of any birth I've been to. And it just reminded me so much of like the calls we've done with Grandma Karina and like the light language that she uses.
oh, so
and you
really.
were doing that the whole time. I remember just saying so many times on the phone with you, like, you're just making the best sounds right now, dude. You are killing it.
I don't remember that
you
at all.
are killing the sounds.
Yeah.
Because I just hear blah, blah, blah.
I was like, loose jaw, loose pussy, loose jaw, loose pussy, right? So I just like, like, just like all over the place. And
it's beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah, and at some point I remember being like, this is too much. Like, I need to, my body is just like in, like it's too much sensation in the body. I have to calm it down. The thing I'm doing with my breath is not working. It's like not working on the level that I would like it to work. I want to be calm. I want to be like Zen hypnobirth chick. I want to be like laughing my ass off or like orgasming, not in pain, not in like struggle, not like in whatever I'm doing. Like, this sucks. Please just like, so then I was like, Dan, get the CBD, because that's like one of my go-to beautiful medicines. So I take like 2 droppers of CBD under my tongue. And like within a minute or 2, I'm just like puking. It's just like my body's like, no, psych, like that's not your medicine right now. Hey, Luna. So yeah, so Dan, I don't know why the bucket was in the bathroom, but good job. The bucket was in the bathroom, or maybe he went and got it. So he caught the puke. It didn't end up in the tub, because that was like another level of like, whoa. And it reminded me of something, the puking in the tub. I don't remember now, but like the puking was like so very familiar. Maybe like ayahuasca.
Yeah, sounds about right.
It had that kind of feeling. It's like, okay, I'll purge it out, whatever's going on. It was like this, like, oh, I'm puking, like that means I'm close. Like it was sort of, my body was like, oh yeah, like yeah, like let's do this. I remember there were like many women's stories I'd heard where they're like, yeah, and then I puked, and then that like started the thing that got the baby out. And I was like, so ready for that. So ready for that. I can't even think about it. We're just like giggling hysterically because it's the only thing that makes it okay. It's so messed up what we go through. Like, it's like so messed up. Oh, I remember being like, whose idea was to put such a big thing through such a small hole? Whose idea was it? I was like, not my idea. So puking and then breathing, and then at some point I was like, it had been in my mind for like a while before I actually said it out loud to Dan, but I was just like, need to call Gemma, because in my head before, like when I was like planning the birth stuff, I was like, the thing I need, like I know I can free birth, and the thing I need to know that I have in order to do that is somebody to call who I can trust, who's like a wise woman who can talk me through the thing where I go, I can't fucking do this. Right? It's like, that's what I need. And Dan was like totally stellar, but like whatever he was saying was not the thing I needed to hear to get me to that point. And I remembered how like calm and peaceful my body had felt when you were in the room. And I was like, call Gemma. And I thought about calling to have you come, but that still didn't feel safe. Sad face. But calling you did, because that was my, like, you said it really well. It was like, that was my like version of like, ask for the drugs. So
yeah. We've been in our prenatal classes been like talking about like the moment in transition when most moms ask for the drugs, whether they're at home and free birthing or not, even though they know like logically that's not an option. Like it comes out, it happens because the intensity of it. And as soon as she called me, I was like, oh, Elena, this is your version of asking for the drugs.
Yeah, I was like,
such a good sign.
Yeah, and I just remember your voice, you were really calm, and you were like, just like, you're doing great. And apparently you said things I don't remember, and you were on the phone with me for more than a half an hour. I thought you were on the phone with me, which is beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, and then I remember you saying like, in between, like, ground and look at Dan. And somewhere before you called was the blood curdling scream, though. I don't think you were on the phone for that. You would remember if you were.
No, but yeah. Alex
told you about it. Yeah. So at some point before we called you, I was like, this thing I'm doing, it's like, it's not working. Whatever, like, it's not working. It's not like actually calming my body down enough to be able to feel comfortable in what's happening, or it's not like, yeah, I just had the sense it's like, it's not working. And so I was like, well, I'm actively working with these energies. I'm actively like modulating it. I'm actively like focusing on my will and intent with like how I'm interpreting this energy. And like, part of birth is like surrendering to the energy. So what if I try not doing that? What if I just let the sound that's in my body come through without modulating it? So on the next surge, I like went ahead and did that, and it was like, I mean, I don't have a hearing of it, but I know how it landed in my body. It landed in my body as like pure terror, and I was like, nope, that is not the thing we're gonna do. Because I saw Down's face, and Alex, like, maybe I felt Alex through the field or whatever. Alex said he had to hold on to Dawa because like Dawa was like so freaked out by it, and I was like, that was a scary sound. Like, that is not how I want to move through this. That is not how I want to like be in this experience, because I'm going to scare myself. In retrospect, it might have gotten me there faster. Might have gotten me there with like a more open pussy. But it was like too like terrified to like let it percolate for more than like that one. So I was like, okay, back to what we were doing, no problem, this is working. Yeah, so then we called you, and then I just remember being in the tub and you were like ground into Dan. So then I like focusing, I'd been like very, like my perceptions had been very like inwards prior to that. I was like, oh yeah, like loving man has been here holding my hand for quite some time. Like he is a good person to ground into on this. So then like I remember like consciously making a point of like looking at him more strongly. And then he's trying to like scoop poop out of the tub because I've been pooping in the tub for the last like hour and some. So between surges, when he's not focusing on me, he's like, or actually no, he said he was doing it while I was surging too, because he's just trying to keep it. He's like all these little like so much poop. Wow. I understand why they enema ladies. I totally get it. Like I had thought about doing it to myself, but then I was like, no, it's fine. In retrospect, I might really consider it would like simplify the process a little bit.
But it would also make it's also like an induction method in that stimulating your bowels stimulates your uterus. Like that's what castor oil work. So it would probably make the intensity of it not worth it.
Right. Yeah.
Is my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had been like, no, like I remember in early, like in that evening when we were laboring, there was a point where I was like, I want this to be moving forward. And I had this like beautiful set of tinctures. One of them is like labor enhancer with like blue and black cohosh and another herb. And I remember pulling it out of the box and being like, I'm not going to take you because that scares the heck out of me. And I don't need this to be faster than it is, but I'm going to hold it. I just like held it and was like, okay, I'm on board, like receive some of the energy of this, but I'm not putting it in my body. And after the birth, I looked through the box again. There's this beautiful tincture called transition ease. And I was like, God, I wish somebody would have remembered that was in the box. I did not remember that was in the box. I would have been so helpful. I would have been totally on board to take that tincture. Was not on board to, yeah, I know, right? That's just like, I would have been totally on board. It's got dosage instructions. Dan could have totally given it to me between good surges and like, And it was like, okay, well, whatever.
More for the next lady.
It's like in the past. That's for you, Erica. Make sure that's in your box. You can tell your husband, if she's losing it, pooping, just start giving it to her if you want, right? Like, but like in the future, like I would totally have given Dan that instruction. I go like, if I start like pooping and I'm not and I'm like, whatever, don't worry about it. Like, you start giving me this tincture. That sounds like a great idea.
Transition.
That's great. That's a good idea. Yeah. So, thanks, ladies. So real. Okay, so we're in the tub, and I had checked myself a couple times during labor. I couldn't feel his head at all. It was super discouraging. I was not impressed. I was just like, but where I could feel him before we started this process. Where did he go? Can't feel him anymore. So then sometime after we called you, it was like, oh, all of a sudden I could feel him. I'm like, I can feel the head now. I can feel the head now. And I could also feel the opening of my vagina, and I could feel the tenseness in my muscles. And I was just like, oh shit. Because at that point, they were coming so strong and so fast. And like the fetal ejection reflex was like absolutely in action, being like, okay, baby's coming out. And it was like, I mean, time again is so funny, but like, it was like a very short amount of time in the grand scheme of the labor where I could feel his head, and then I was like, oh, okay, we're coming down, like we're really coming down through the vagina now. And I could feel that outer, like the perineal ring. And I was just like, it was like this. I'm like, there's a baby coming through this thing. Like that is not open enough. Right? Like it needs to get bigger. And just being like, oh, but like feeling, and then it was like one surge and he was like a fair ways up. And then like another surge and he's like much closer, and then another surge and then he's like much closer, and then he's like right on the opening. And I was like, oh no, like I'm just gonna tear right open. This is gonna be so brutal. And it's just like, well, just like it's not stopping it. It's not happening, and I really want the baby out. So like we're just gonna do it. It's just gonna happen. Whatever happens, it happens. Like it's okay. And he was like, yeah, I just remember he was like maybe like this far in, and I was like, Dan, like, you can feel the baby's head. And I like brought his hand over the side of the tub and I was like, you can feel it. And he was like, oh, like he was just so, it's like so beautiful. He liked to feel that. And I was like, yeah, now the baby's coming. It's just this like the wildest, the sensation in the like body. There's the like 1,000 out of 1,000 intensity, right? It's feel like I was thinking about it and it's like the closest thing I can imagine is like, you imagine a train starts out at the station, it's going like chugga, 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 chugga. By the time we got to this moment, it's going like 80 kilometers an hour and it's coming straight out my fucking vagina. And I go like, and the tunnel's not wide enough right now. We're just gonna blast through the other side of the tunnel. It's like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. And that's where I go like, maybe if I had been letting out blood curdling screams, my vagina would have been looser because I wasn't still actively holding on or something. But I was like, can't change the past, so yay. Yeah, freight train. Thank you, ladies, for all listening to me. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so then it's like this sensation of like he's right on the edge and you feel it's like I don't know how to describe it. It's like so intense. It's like the intensity of 1,000 goes to like 2,000 and then like and he came out all in one piece, just like boom, the whole baby out. And he's under the water because we were in the water. Oh yes, you remember too. I know. Yes, then he's under the water. And I don't remember if we stood up and untangled him first. I think so, because he had the cord was like, it was like up over one shoulder. It wasn't around his neck. It was like over one shoulder and then down the other shoulder. So sort of like suspenders and then around one leg as well. So I think I just stood up right away and was like, Dan, figure it out. Like, I don't know. It's like down here. It's awkward. Like, I'm going to drop him. Like, help me figure this out. So then Dan sort of like moved his leg and I got his leg untangled and then we got his head untangled. And then I just like plopped back into the water and held him on my chest. And I remember holding him, he was like so purple. He was like so purple, but his one eye was open and you could see he was kind of like looking around. He didn't make any sounds. And that's just like, okay, I think he's alive. Pretty sure he's alive. Good. Okay, and he's not making sounds, but he's definitely looking around, so we're okay. And then, oh yes, sweetheart. Look, you're popping out for everybody to see. Just like in the story. Yeah. Look kind of like this, only purpler. Yeah, and then I remember kind of moving him so he was more like face down, but he's on this side, and then he cried a little bit, and I remember being like, oh thank God. Oh thank God. I was like, we're good, everything's okay. And just really feeling on the other side of that. And we stayed in the tub for a while. Dan got a towel, we put the towel over top of him. I remember staring at him for like a long time and then eventually going like, oh my partner's here. Like we did it. Like, just like so happy with him. And Alex was behind Dan. He kind of like came around the corner of the bathroom and was like, oh yeah. And we were like, it's a boy, because we weren't sure, but we had called in a boy. So that was like really victorious because Alex really wanted a little brother, like a lot. And so we had consciously been like, yes, we're calling him like a boy soul. And we're really on board with that. And I had a dream early in pregnancy of like seeing through my belly, like see-through belly, and like the baby doing like somersaults, these like little penis testicles, and being like, I hadn't had any other baby dreams that were like oriented on my body. So it's like, could really be, but like could really not be. So we'll just keep it in the mystery. And that was really beautiful to have confirmation on that. And then remember at some point being like, oh, Gemma's still on the phone.
Yeah, I was still like on the phone at this point, just like listening to them like bawling my face off in my bedroom. It's so So beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was probably on the phone for like 20 or so minutes after baby was born, and that at that point you had gotten out of the tub.
Oh yeah. Yep. So we, yeah. Oh gosh, that was so gross. Yeah. So at some point we decided we were gonna get out of the tub, and I was like, I'm ready to move to the bed. So we moved to the bed, and Dan like threw down this like tux pad and some towels that I had so that I could like sit on it, and like he literally had like just put it down, and I stepped onto it, and like all of these blood clots just like huge. I can't, my hands, whatever, but it was like this big like dinner plate sized like amount of just like clots and blood, and I was like, oh, good catch, gross, now what? And I was like, well, I'm already filthy, so like I'll just sit next to it, that's fine, it's like whatever, like I don't want to deal with it now, nobody else wants to deal with it now, let's just sit next to it. Kind of like folded the one end over and was like, we'll just sit, it's all good. Yeah, and then we sat there for like long time, just like cuddling, and Dan came in really close and looking at the baby, and I remember being really crampy and a couple of times being like, okay, like trying to get up and like see if I could squat over a bowl and like placenta out. That did not happen. And then did that a couple times, like maybe two times in that time, and then you hopped off the phone at some point, and I remember you were like going to do something, or you said you'd check in later about placenta.
Yeah, I was going to make you soup.
Oh yeah, you brought me soup. Thank you. Yeah. So then we just like sat in baby bliss bubble for like a long time, and I remember being like, "What about the placenta? We're not really done yet. We're almost done, but we're like not actually done yet." And yeah, and so then I had tried a couple times, and I remember talking to Gloria LeMay's been on some of the prenatal calls that I had been to with Clara. She's a really brilliant elder birth worker who's been like Freebirth advocating since like 40 years ago. Longer, yeah. I remember her being like, you can just like put traction, like you can use a cloth and put traction on the cord and like not yank, but just like pull when you have the surges. So I've been doing that for like quite a while, and it wasn't moving. And then you came by with, we texted a little bit, and you were like, I can come by with soup. So you came by, and
Yeah, I came for
you came by
for a couple hours at least.
Yeah, that was like,
and we were just kind of brainstorming ways of encouraging placenta along.
Yeah,
because at that point it was
like 7.
It was like 8. Yeah, it had been a good like 4 hours of placenta still.
Yeah,
which is fine.
I remember being like, this is fine, but also I don't like it. I just want to be done. I really want to be done. And it's super awkward, like moving around the bed, having the baby attached. He was long enough that like we could nurse, but it's like super awkward. And you suggested that we could like burn or cut the cord, whatever. And I had set up a little placenta kit that had both. So I was like, oh, like what do we want to do? And it was interesting because I would probably not have thought of that like in that space. Like I was like, oh well, we'll just leave the placenta inside of me until it's really ready to come out, and that'll be sometime in the next 24 hours. And as long
I
as
hope it asked how long is fine. I would say like 24 hours. The hospital doesn't let you go past an hour.
Yeah.
But it just depends where you are on the scale of okayness.
Yeah. Gloria says nobody should ask about it until at least half an hour. If not an hour. And yeah, so and I had pulled out Heather Baker's book and like reread the placenta chapter and been like, okay, like it could be a while. But Jen suggested like doing the cord, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense because then I can like move around, I can have a shower, I still have like really bloody thighs. And I don't really want to sleep like that.
More mobility, even to just like get in a different position to help placenta out.
Yeah, because it was super awkward trying to like squat over a bowl
with
a baby attached to me that nobody else could really hold because the cord was so short that like he needed to be like next to me in order to make it work. So then we did that. Dan, we got the little kid out and Dan like held the candle and burned the cord. It didn't smell as bad as I thought it would, but it was like not a great smell, but not a terrible smell. Yeah, nothing compared to my farts. See, I get so pissed at Alex for making fart jokes all the time.
Yeah.
But it's because I don't get to make them, or I'm not a choice. I don't know. It's all good. And I don't make them like 17 at a time, one after another. It's like spacing and timing. It's like, yeah. So then, so then we burn the cords. Then we're separate from baby. Dan held the baby for a while, and we started taking the like placenta tincture from that lovely little box that I still didn't know had transition ease in it at that point. So I started taking like, I had taken a little bit before you got there, and I was like, this isn't increasing anything. I don't, and then I just sort of forgot about it. So then I did, and then Dan held the baby, and I was like, I'm gonna go have a shower. So I went in the shower, and I had put my fingers in my vagina, and I could feel that, like, I could feel the placenta. I was like, oh, there's this like squidgy, like soft thing that's like sort of maybe halfway down. It's like, okay, so it's there. It's not like on the other side of the cervix. It's like halfway. It just needs some like coaxing to come out. So then I got in the shower, sort of rinsed off, and then I was like, okay, and I squatted down and I pulled on it and just sort of like worked with it for a while until it did like pop out, and it came out like all, it's like hard to think about, but I remember being like, oh no, here we go again. And then being like, oh, that wasn't like, go like, it's not going to be as bad as the other one. Everybody says it's not as bad as the other one. It'll be fine. You can do it. Like, but there's definitely fear in the body of like, no. I was like, no, you can do it. It's fine. So then, like, and it came out. It came out into my left hand. And it took up like more than my hand. It was this like giant, big thing, and I kind of like washed it off in the shower and like looked at it. Had a whole bunch of like clotting on one side, like so the other half of the clots that had popped out of me or something, sort of what it felt like. And I had the whole kit there, so I like bagged it in the shower, rinsed the bag off and put it in the thing, and was like, okay, we'll put that in the fridge. And then I came to lay down, and then we just slept. I don't remember. Dan and I stayed up for quite some time and just like talked, and we're like, holy shit, that was so intense. Holy shit, that was so intense. And we said that for like probably the next 4 days. Like anytime there was like, we were together in the same room, we're just like, that was so intense. That was so intense. Wow, we did it. That was so intense. Like just like over and over on repeat, just like trying to process it and like really being in connection around it. And baby slept really well through the night. I started up right away with like it's like an after, like a cramp tincture and CBD and arnica tablets, and those three just like right away. And then I had this like,
how was your primal?
oh, we're getting there. It's gonna be a journey. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't look at it until end of day next day. So baby slept really well through the night. Baby has been like absolutely champ, sleeping in like 4-hour sections. I wake up in the middle of the night and change his diaper, and maybe it's wet. Probably, yeah, it's like wet, but like warmish. So then I'm like, okay, well, he just woke up and peed and then woke me up, and then we nurse back to sleep. And it takes maybe like, again, I don't have clocks in here, so like I think that helps, because then I'm not sitting there being like, it's been like 2 hours, I'm still awake. It's just like I'm in endless time. Like I've been for weeks and months already. Like, yeah, so he slept really, really well and woke up feeling like pretty good. And then it was like midway through that next day, and I was like, okay, we gotta like take a look at this yoni because it hurts and I need to know like what's going on. So Dan he had this like big mirror that's like portable. In the future, I would definitely get a small mirror ahead of time. I have one now, but yeah, so Dan held this like giant mirror. I was like, no, a little down, a little this way, like a little that way, kind of looking at it. And so I had with Alex, I had Let me just pop up and close the door. My brain's like so loud. Thank you. With Alex, I had like labial tearing like out both ways. So like just under, like if this is the yoni. Oh, it's so awkward with baby in hands. But like from the like just below the like clit, sort of like out both ways, and I'd had tearing on both sides out. I delivered him on my hands and knees in front of way too many people in the hospital. And I knew that sometimes with second babies, if you've been stitched, they'll tear in the same places. So I definitely did. And then one at the bottom. So it was sort of like on the left hand side, there was like one that had come almost all the way through the labia, but not quite. Maybe like this much like left that was still attached. And by the time I looked at it, it was like a dark line, but looked like it had really like already come together. And then the other side, the same thing through like the tissue, but then the labia just like just shattered into like two pieces. So I got this little like extra like clit dangly thing hanging off the side of my clit now. It's like, oh, so that'll be interesting. And I was like, maybe I can bring it together, maybe I can not. And then another like not all the way through one down at the bottom. And I remember after I looked, I think curl up. I just like lay there and like just sobbed for like a long time. Just feeling like my vagina's never gonna be the same. Like I can't even do it justice, like how sad I was and how just like it's like not broken, but just like the finality of it or something like that. Just like, oh, like this is done and like there's nothing I can do to undo it. And Dan was really sweet and being like, you're beautiful, and like a badge of honor, and you're like, it's totally beautiful, and like we'll take time. But it was just this really like deep sinking in. Like I did not get through this unscathed. Like I absolutely have like a wound that's going to need healing. I was like, there's no going back to sex in 5 days. Like that's not happening, because that happens for some ladies, but like, nope, I'm on at least a 6-week journey. We're going to be doing this. It's going to be like more bed rest. Not like I'd already planned that, but like, just like, okay, there's like a lot more going on here. And yeah, so that was intense. And then there was like another moment, it's like a day later, where I like finally made it back into the shower. Like I didn't shower or anything. I just like literally laid in bed for like most of the last 10 days. I like to say like 23 and 3/4 out of 24 hours have been like right where I'm at. And I've been super beautifully supported by like Dan and Alex and Gemma and my mom to like just stay there and stay resting and be a bossy bitch, being like, okay, but my wall is driving me crazy and I need to move like this piece over there and this thing over there, and like I need tea autonomy. I drink tea every morning. I can't not drink tea every morning. Nobody knows how to make my tea the way I make it. Like, you set me up a tea station. Like, I'm going crazy. I haven't moved in like 3 days. Like, you need to help me. That kind of thing. And everybody's been really, really supportive. But I remember getting back in the shower and it was like, oh, it was so good. And like the water was like so warm. And I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. And like, Jonah was like super happy with my mom, like snuggling. They were in like mama baby bliss zone. And then just like crash and just like having these like this wave, it's like waves of processing. Like it's not like, oh, the birth's done and then you're done processing it and you're like good to go. It's like these waves of like, oh, and then so I'm back in the shower and it's like I actually haven't been in this physical space since the birth. And it was just like, whoa, and I ended up like on my knees. Dan had put a little stool in so I could like sit if I wanted to. And I ended up like on my knees, leaning on the stool with my elbows, like dry heaving because I was like reliving the birth basically and just being like, oh, and here's the puking of transition and like here's the like and getting more cramping and being like, oh, like my body just really like reenacting the experience.
Integrating.
So
beautiful.
Yeah, and just like not howling, not like that blood curdling scream, but just like crying and being like, oh, I'm okay, but like this is so intense. And yeah, just integrating really. It's like, Dan, like come in the shower with me and just sit with me. He's like, I'm in the middle of like, oh, he was redoing the bed for me because I was like, I need the bed to be different so I can be more comfortable and I can spend the next week here. So he was like in the process of doing that while I was in the shower. Oh, baby. Yeah. So then, yeah, just like so there were lots of moments of that. There, especially in that first 3 or 4 days, there were like lots of moments of that. And then Alex had a moment where like he went from being like totally fine playing, like having being like swinging in the yoga swing and stuff like that, to like curled up on the bed with like womb cramps, like deep belly cramps that were like so intense that he was like moaning and like howling, like oh, like making these like labor sounds. And we were all like, what's going on? Are you okay? Sort of like triaging like normal body stuff. And I was like, no, this is like totally psychosomatic. His body is like processing the things he heard and the sounds that happened and the energy of the space and just like moving it through.
So cool.
Yeah. So then Dan and my mom like sort of talked with him for a bit. And then Dan came in and we like smudged and we did like clearing and we did like this water ceremony of like drinking the water like it's medicine with an intention to like release and let him go. And then within like, it's like maybe half an hour total, within like half an hour of that, within like 30 seconds of like drinking that water, he was just like, okay, like you want to tickle fight? And he's like having like a lot of fun. And I was like, how? I remember he looked so much like my sister too. My sister has like chronic health stuff. And I remember looking at him and like the fur on his lip and the shape of his eyebrow and just like feeling like my sister's sickness like pass through and being like, no, like you can't rest here. Like you're not welcome here. Like that's sort of like the pain body of the family or something, or like the trauma load or the, I don't know. It's like really surreal. But just being like, nope. I'm like, Dan, you gotta smudge the house and then like the whole room again and then the house one more time and then all of us and doing like, yeah, there's lots of moments of like shamanic breath and like shoo, like throughout the whole thing really. Yeah. And then we've been here with baby. Been steaming a lot. Been steaming every day. That's been super lovely. Everything on the outside of my vagina feels like healed up. The tissues feel good. I've done a little bit of like internal exploration. It's like pretty gnarly on the right, pretty tight, pretty tense. Like did some reading about that today and was like, okay, like most people don't venture to put their fingers inside themselves till like week 5 or 6. Okay, so I'm a little ahead on that, but also like probably if I can do like scar remediation like now versus 6 weeks from now, like that will be helpful as long as I'm gentle with it. Yeah, I did some last night. Just like just want to like, well, I just want to go back to being like a happy, healthy, sexy lady doing yummy things. And so if I can encourage that like sooner rather than later, I'm like going to be pursuing that for sure because it's beautiful. And Dan and I have connected a couple times, but like, so A, we're just like tired at the end of the night. And then B, also like, it's just like so different, but the energy is really palpable. It's like maybe because we haven't in some days, but like it's really like I can feel it. It's interesting because like the physical tissues have like some work to do clearly, but like energetically it's like very integral. I can feel like I've had so many moments of like the whole vagina just going like with pleasure, being like, I'm still here, we're working, you know? And I was like, I'm like, okay, everything's still good. Like, I can feel it. And it's like less loose than it was. Everything feels like it's moving together more. And yeah, and I saw castor oil packs, and there will definitely be getting some of that going.
Yeah.
Like a beautiful salve that Jeanette and I made. It's going on. It's been up in there helping everything heal, full of like good wild plants I harvested last summer, and yeah, all of that. That takes us up to here pretty much. Babe's been sleeping like a champ. He's like this a lot of the time. And when he's not like this, we're nursing. So I feel really blessed in that. He's like super peaceful. Oh,
I
JC
don't
says,
think you've shared baby's
I
name
don't
yet.
think I did. No, the baby's name is Jonah Ethan Theophrastus Harder-Rekshan. It's a mouthful. It means strong voice of God's peace. And if you add the Harder-Rekshan, maybe it's like son of the king of the shepherds or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Beautiful.
yeah. And the Theophrastus is from Dan. He's been reading a lot of like ancient, not ancient, but like Greco-Roman through like 3,000 years ago, like all the wise men. He's been like just like eating that stuff up for the last 6 months. And there was a guy who codified the like elemental. He like, wrote books in the sometime I don't remember. He wrote books about like the air elementals and the water elementals and whatever. And he had like 8 middle names, and Dan just like was really tickled about him. And like Theophrastus had like come forward, and he just giggled hysterically when he was like, "Can we add this as the middle name?" He's just like so happy. I'm like, "Oh, I'm sure." It makes you so happy, like, well, let's do it. Like, it doesn't matter to me if baby has a half a mouthful or a full mouthful or 6 mouthfuls of the name. Like, it's all good. Yeah. And Jonah is the name that came through in that initial like channeling that we did, because I had gotten this like, it was like this full body goosebumps with like Jonah, and I was like, ugh, what a biblical name. I don't like that at all. But then the whole pregnancy has been this like beautiful, like Jeanette is all like this elder woman in our community. She's all about like being witchy and Christian and having that be good, and like mystical Christianity. And like it's been this whole pregnancy has been like a huge journey of like being like, oh, like the Christians, like the core of it way back before they used it to burn all the witches as an excuse, and all the crusades and crap, like a tool of like patriarchal like like before that, like the essence of it was like super super beautiful. Yeah, so it's all the things. Anyway, I chatted for like a long time. I really appreciate y'all laughing with me and crying with me and listening to the story. And yeah, it's super super beautiful. Oh,
Right on time.
right on time. Yeah. And this little guy slept through. I think, yeah, he's just super peaceful. Also, I've been taking a lot of CBD. I heard it goes through the breast milk, so that might be a trick that like people should do, honestly, because sleeplessness when you have a new baby is like a thing that hinders healing. And we actually have an endocannabinoid system. Pretty sure it's for a reason. Pretty sure we're meant to be working with the plant. So it makes a lot of sense to like conk yourself and the baby into comatoseness, because Lord knows lying still for a week and a half is really challenging, actually. And I definitely shed some tears. I've got this like little postpartum journal that I picked up off Etsy. It's really sweet. And I'm like only like 10 days in, and I'm like, there's so many blank pages. I gotta stay in bed for how many more days? Like, Dan's like, you're on retreat, honey. I'm like, I hate it, but I love it, but I hate it. It's like, how many more days? So, but also, yeah, I definitely like got up and was walking more yesterday, and like ended up with bloody thighs, and I was like, get back in bed, Elena. So that's what I'm doing. And yeah, we've had really beautiful outpouring of support from community, people bringing food, and I was like, I need more pillows. So I've got like, I think I've sconced all the pillows right now. You have like one somehow, right? Like,
I don't need them.
You don't need them, but when Dan's here and Alex is here, like, we need more pillows.
Yeah.
So we had somebody drop off pillows and bone broth and reishi and all sorts of stuff. And so yeah, it's just been like super beautiful, super supported, working on integrating that it's okay for me to be supported and loved by community in a really visceral way. It's been super beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we got this little bubs. It's so sweet.
Yeah, you do such a good job of asking for support.
Oh, I'd just be a grumpy bitch if I didn't, so.
It's beautiful. I love it.
Honestly. Or like bloody thighed and like crying. And I've already lived that. I don't want to live that again.
Yeah.
It took me like 7 years to heal it. I'd rather just like learn to be somebody new.
And it's just such an inspiration for like everyone around you.
Mm-hmm.
Giving everyone else permission to ask for what they need to. It's been really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then when I'm better, I will help people also, especially if they have more babies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Thank you so, so much. My long, beautiful story. Yeah. If anybody wants to offer like short reflection or like something you heard, that would be really beautiful for me.
No questions.
More questions? Yeah, some of the ladies popping off. I got babies to put to bed.
I would like to say, well, thank you for sharing, Elena. I'm really excited to hear your story, and I'm so excited for you guys. It's so beautiful. I know. I was like, I can relate to so much of it. Like, I was Oscar, like, for anyone who doesn't know, I free birthed my son. So much I can relate to. But with the tearing, I mean, I had like a 2nd-degree tear with him as well. And both of us being Virgos, I feel like it's totally, at the time, I was like, I had such the same similar emotions to you. I'm like, oh my God, my vagina. Like, and I was the same. I'm like, I have to look, I have to know what's going on down there. And, but looking back, it was such a gift because it forced me to stay in bed. It forced me to heal. And like, cause I knew like if I would have had this immaculate pussy at the end of my birth, I would have been up doing things. I know because that's me, right? So I'm just like, and at the time it felt like such a burden. And I was just like, you feel like you lose a part of yourself, but then when you come through it on the other end, it's like you realize it's such a gift because you're like, oh, this is what I needed. And our bodies are so wise. They know exactly. She knows exactly what you need. So just hold that in the next couple of weeks and just know that it is a beautiful gift that what's happening down there. So just, but sending you so much love, and I'm hoping to see you in the next week or so as well. Bring you some delicious food.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, look at Mike. Oh, Micah Bear.
Yeah.
Hi. That was amazing hearing your story. And I definitely also really resonated with the tearing and the getting in the shower a couple days later and feeling it and bawling your eyes out. And I was not expecting that part of it all. Like in all the preparation you did on all the calls, we did not really go into that as a possible outcome. So I didn't feel prepared for that. And I totally could feel that in your story too, just the holy shitness of it all. But it is a process it is a gift that you guys told me that too, like, because I would have been up doing stuff and busy, and which I kind of tried to do anyway. So stay in bed. You're doing a great job. You're doing way better than I did. But yeah, wow, good job. And holy, it is intense. It brought back so many memories just listening to your story. I was like, wow, yeah. There's no way to prepare for that. There's no way to know what it's going to be. And like, wow. But then it's such a potent reminder to help us get a hold of that space for other women. And what a powerful little boy to just come bursting through like that.
That's right.
A lot of energy for sure.
He's ready.
Yeah. And Erin, I know I remember holding you in the days and weeks after Micah was born, and that call we had where it was just like 4 or 5 women were like, yeah, we tore with our babies, like it happens, we all healed up, and I definitely held that in my heart, like in this experience, just being like, Erin's still alive, like it's not the end of the world. And when I had this, Dan and I were talking about it, and I had this like image of this like cosmic yoni that's like all the labia are just like all in like all these like shreds, just like with like all these mycelial and it's all eyeballs and like I was like, oh, I gotta paint that. It's gonna be epic. I might paint like 80 of them actually. Like it's got this birth mama. Yeah. Dan said that a couple times. He's like, kind of thought like the goddess of birth would be kind of like Virgin Mary, but like it's definitely more like Kali. And I was like, yes. Yes. God, I wish somebody would have told me that. I kind of knew it, but like, woo.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been like I remember being so angry at the affirmation that was like, I birth with ease and stuff like that. I like tore it off the wall like in anger and ripped it all up. So I was like, that was not fucking easy. That was anything but easy.
So cool.
Yeah. And I remember thinking like, but I had to like one of the things that I needed to learn through that birth was like how to reach out and ask for help from other women. And in order for me to do that, I could not go peacefully at 11 o'clock at night. I could not let her stay peacefully in the evening. I had to get like pushed up against the wall to the point where I was like, there's a train coming out of my vagina. What do I do? Before I was willing to like say yes to that. It's like, okay, I could choose my lessons a little bit easier, but like, also I do like to do things last minute. So
Yeah. It's very much giving you the lessons you need for your next births.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And like tearing also like another reframe that said it's like such a beautiful opportunity to like connect to your body, because what scar tissue needs, especially like early on, like it's great you're starting now, is like gentle loving intention touch with like no no pressure, no like goal of like I'm gonna heal this, or it's what scar tissue needs to heal is just that gentle presence without trying to get anything from it. So yeah, it's so beautiful. That's what scar tissue needs, is like gentle present touch. 100%. Castor oil is great and whatnot, but like 100% what it needs is gentle present touch. And what a like beautiful opportunity, especially if you've done like pussy connection work prior to birth. Like now's the time.
Yeah, and I got that. I was like, oh, like this is a fabulous opportunity for Dan and I to like explore the energetics of intimacy in a way that I've been wanting to do for years with a partner and have never really found a way of asking for. Like, great. All the other stuff's so much fun. The energetics is like super, like that's my, but in theory that's my jam, but in practice in my intimacy it's like not, other than like in addition to other things. So it's like walking the talk a little deeper.
Exactly how it's meant to go.
Yeah. Emily, beautiful. I know you mentioned sharing something. I want to give you like full time to talk through your birth story in the future if you want to do that. I don't want to like jam you in here at the end.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I feel like I have, my birth story turned out kind of traumatically, so I feel like I have some processing to do before I talk about it too much with others.
Yeah,
we totally get that.
Beautiful as well.
Totally get that, and open to hearing and holding space for you in that. Yeah. Anybody else want to check in or share anything before we wrap up for today?
I just want to reflect that I so appreciate and you acknowledged it throughout your story, like the realness and the rawness and like not sparing any details. Like, I just think it's so helpful because it just normalizes the shit out of everything that happens in birth. And yeah, you're just like other people have echoed, like there's just no guarantees in birth, whether it's going to go one way or another way, and just that all the feelings are welcome, and that rage and that's welcome, and all of that. So just thank you for your vulnerability and courage to just share it all. And yeah, I love you, and I'm just so happy and honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, good. Come on in. Come on in, Luna.
Come on in, bub.
Yeah, hop her. Baby, just crawl down for me. Beautiful. I think, well, Alex and Faye, you guys are new to our circle, and some of the other ladies are new too. I just want to extend the invitation. We do this every month, but we don't usually share birth stories, although we'd love to share birth stories every Monday, I think.
When we have the folks.
When we have people who are have birth. But yeah, we do this. We meet up 6:45 to 8:30ish Mountain Time every Monday. We've been doing it for over a year and some, because Erin was part of that first group that came through. We've had at least, we're working on like round 2 of babies that have come through the group. And yeah, so we've got moms on here who have older kids. There's a beautiful birth worker from Alberta who's got teenagers to give us some perspective on how easy young baby stages are compared to teenage stuff. We've had a couple ladies who are in preconception join us, and yeah, today we shared birth story, but normally we just do sort of like open circle and people share what's going on in their worlds, what they're struggling with or what they're celebrating, and then just reflection and stories from other moms going like, oh yeah, that happened to me and it was super challenging, and what I did was this, have you tried that, or here's some resources, or just very mom to mom support oriented. And then Jem's got some guest speakers coming in to do like 2 to 3 or like 20 to 30 minute sort of like talks on different topics. JC is going to do a piece on herbal wisdom for us. Alex is going to do a piece on steaming for us. And I think Hope will probably do one on postpartum prep planning, because that's her jam. And then yeah, different stories and pieces of wisdom from the different women coming forward. So yeah, if you'd like to continue joining us, we'd love to have you here. I hadn't invited the local ladies because we meet up in person, and it felt weird to be like, come to my online ladies gathering, in-person friends. Like, it just felt weird to say that. So
It's so beautiful to have.
but it was super beautiful to have Cass and Shanette and Alex here in person, online. And also then we don't have to drive to like pack up all our children and get babysitters and whatnot to like meet up. We can just, like Erica's in the kitchen looks like. Often there's somebody in the kitchen. Ema was always like in her car driving somewhere during our calls, and then like often would like pass out by the end of them in her like pregnancy like stuff. She just like Faye's like lying on the couch, like Ema would just like pass out and be like sleeping, and we'd like get nestled in her boobs with her phone or something. Super funny. So like just really like really real pregnancy and momming stuff.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
yeah, the invitation is open there. It's really beautiful. We got a little chat where people can ask questions in between the calls. And it's been really nourishing for me. And look, I got a bubba now.
Full circle.
Got a bubba now. Yeah. So, super
Thank
good.
you, woman.
Yeah, thank you so much for being part of my world. And it feels so like honoring to have you guys show up and hear the story and be a part of it. And I'm not sure, Faye, where you're at in your pregnancy journey, but I know Erica's she's in her last trimester, moving towards it. So just holding space for all those ladies who are about to go through the wildness of the birth portal. You got this. It's like to have a piece of wisdom. It's like you will get pushed up against the wall.
It's very close. 2 weeks.
Yeah. And you can work on like, what do you do when you get pushed there? What are your go-tos? How do you deal with like, there's no like, I mean, bless you if you have a beautiful, easeful, totally like hypnobirthing, calm, like glorious birth, like it exists on the internet webs, but also like, look at what are your go-tos? How do you handle getting pushed up against the wall? And you can work with those, however much time you've got left in your pregnancy, like work with that and line that up to support yourself in a good way. And also check in on your postpartum plan. Everything should be within arm's reach of wherever you plan on lying. You can set that up for yourself ahead of time. I thought I had it set up. I had my tea station in the living room. This is the wrong room. Right? So like, yeah, set it up. Set yourself up as best you can, and then rest as much as you can. Yes, and then they get big.
Sweet Luna. Luna was listening to Mama Elena laboring on the phone. She's saying, why is she yelling? I said, because she's working really hard. And Luna said, we have to go. We can't miss it.
Oh my gosh, that would have been so intense. Oh, I
It's like,
forgot.
I think we'll stay home, Luna. Just listening, right? So beautiful.
Mhm.
So we got to come see baby.
Yes, you did. Okay.
The baby on that picture looks really cute.
Yeah,
That's Micah.
that's Micah baby. He's super cute. He's just over 1 year now. Yeah. I met him,
But that baby could open his eyes.
yeah. I met him when he was still in his mama's belly. His mom and I walked together on Zoom through her pregnancy.
That's
No
the
funny one.
baby.
That is the baby. He's making a little.
Next step is closing of the bones, which I'm really excited to do.
More
we
rest.
can definitely do a week on talking about that as well when it's that time.
Mhm.
On the closing of the bones, rite of passage.
Closing up all the psychic space and all the pelvic space and close it up. Okay, beautiful ladies.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week,
Especially that goddamn.
especially that baby Micah.
Especially he shows up pretty much every week. We love him.
Okay, good night,
Okay, good
everyone.
night.
Night.